In a world where engagement and retention are in a state of crisis, Dov Baron, a world-renowned leadership speaker and consultant, is guiding leaders and organizations to find the essence of their business and the soul of their leadership, to become magnetically attractive to top talent and magnify engagement, profit, and positive impact like never before.
So being an adrenaline junkie, I challenged my buddy that we should go hike behind the waterfall, which is pretty dangerous because there's a lot of about 70-mile-an-hour spray. But we got behind that. And when we came out on the other side from the waterfall, I felt like Superman. I felt like I had a big S tattooed on my chest and I could do anything. I was invigorated. I was excited. Your greatness as a leader does not exist on the surface. It does not exist in the status quo. It does not exist in the comfort zone. My name is Dov Baron. Thank you for your time.
And now it's a real pleasure to have on Fast Forward the incredible Dov Baron. Brilliant, Dov. So good to have you here. And
thank you. It's good to be here.
I know there's been a few challenges to get you on the show, but people don't need to know about that.
No.
Let's go straight to the core subject. You do a lot of things. I'm always incredibly blown away by the content and by the fact of the depth and layer that goes into everything that you say. But the role of leadership has been something that I've seen altered in the last 2-3 years at least, which used to be what management sort of flipped over their job title to be, but it's a very different animal. What do you think it should be for people who want to really embrace the future of leadership?
I think number one, we've got to understand that leadership and management are vastly different, and leadership is about humanities. We've got to understand that it's about the human connection. And if you want to think about it in the simplest possible terms, it's this, is you are already a leader. If you're watching this, maybe you don't think of it because you don't have that title, but you're already a leader. Leadership is about impact and influence, and you are already having impact and influence. Maybe it's just on your own kids, on your friends, or on relatives, or whatever it is, but you are a leader, and you have to take on that responsibility because you are leading by example. But we're not talking about following certain rules. We're talking about leading by the example of what is in your heart and your soul and the message you want to bring to those that you lead, whether it's in your role at work or whether it's in your life.
Awesome answer. Dov, I am intrigued because I think you have an incredible accolade of having the most successful podcasts in the, what is it, the Inc. 500 or?
So we have the number one podcast in the world for Fortune 500 listeners.
Fortune 500.
And yeah, and Inc.com made us the number one podcast to listen to make you a better leader.
That's fabulous. Well, here's my question. Right now, a lot of our listeners are very confused in the fact that they do not know what to do. I mean, they're speakers and they want to get more. They want to be seen more. They want to be heard more. They want to have more impact. What advice could you give to somebody which is basically just getting started with a podcast?
So you're talking about somebody who is just starting off in a podcast or starting going on podcast?
No, yeah, basically how can anybody get started and get actually some impact through the use of that medium?
Well, I mean, podcasting is the medium now. It's the number one. It's growing extraordinarily fast. One of the reasons that we're number one in the world for what it is we do is we're the OG. We're the old guys. We've been around for 12 years, and a lot of podcasts are happening every 20 minutes. So we've had a long established program, and I would highly suggest that anyone who is a speaker starts to get themselves on podcasts, because here's the interesting thing about it. The new car companies are now putting podcastability into their cars instead of radio. That's powerful. That's significant. So they will have Google Podcasts, they will have Apple Podcasts, they will have all those podcasts, Spotify, etc., we're on all of those platforms. We already go out to 120 countries. Now you're going to be in cars. You have got to get on podcasts. Now, here's the thing I would say to speakers. Start off by going on podcasts that don't matter. Because I know you're a speaker and you go, oh, I can do podcasts. I really want you to hesitate on that, because most people can't do podcasts. They don't know how to do them. You've got to speak in sound bites. You've got to be conversational. And most speakers want to lecture. If you do that on a podcast, you're dead in the water. So go on, mess around in some that are not very big, get 50 listeners, that's fine, and start to hone down what your central message is and the sound bites that you can give, including your stories, in just a couple of minutes. That's going to work much better for you. And the exposure is phenomenal. I am interviewed, as in I'm the guest, about 4 times a week.
I wanted to ask you about mindset, because since the lockdown, we've got a very different world. And it's been talked about by the medical industry that the second pandemic will actually be mental health. The amount of people isolated, losing jobs, feeling lost, not knowing what the world's about, not trusting their leadership, and feeling for the first time ever that they not only don't have the security of a job for the future, but they don't know where the world is going to go. What can be done for people to help their mindset? And if people who are watching this are feeling the pinch and feeling the challenges, what would you recommend?
That's a big question. There's a lot of pieces to unpack.
No pressure.
Thanks for that light question. Well, we'll just give you a softball, Dov.
In 2 minutes. No,
exactly.
As long as you want.
So let's start off with this and saying that if you're leading people, this is where I want to start first. Before we go to you, if you're leading people, what I want you to know is that even when people come back to work in whatever form that is, you're going to have to know that you are going to be dealing with mental health. You got to know that. So if you're a leader and you don't have that training, you need to get yourself some development work. You need to make sure you're signed up to train yourself. We're not asking you to become a therapist, but to understand how to deal with people, because you're going to be dealing with PTSD. This has caused PTSD for many people. Loneliness was already at an insane level in the world. It's only gotten higher. It's gotten more tragic. The reports on suicide rate has gone up through the roof, not because of losing jobs, but because people are isolated. Human beings are tribal. We have to connect. We need to connect with each other. So that's the first thing you got to do, is understand that you are going to interact with other people who are going to be emotionally feeling trauma. Now, the key to that is this. They won't want to admit it. Nobody wants to admit that. So your job is to actually pay attention. So one of the things I'm saying to a lot of my clients, as you said, Dave, I work with clients all over the world, and I work with a lot of leaders around the world, and they're saying to me, what do I need to do? And I said, first and foremost, you do not have a Zoom meeting. You do not have a digital meeting. You don't have a connection without starting personal. They go, oh my God, I don't want to do that. I know you don't, but if you don't do that, you're not going to get production out of your people. They need that emotional connection. So we need emotional connection at a distance. This idea of social distancing is not social distancing. It's physical distancing, that we still need the emotional connection. So you got to start there. Take care of your people by asking them, how are you doing? How's the dogs, Dave? How are they doing with that? How are you doing it? How's the kids doing it? How's the family doing? How are you coping with this? Has it had any impact on you? Let's have some 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes of emotionally connected conversation. Your people will then feel less isolated, more connected, and more willing to produce.
That's a great answer. Just another question, which it has to do with the isolation and everything that we are talking about, that we have just gone through a number of months. Right now, I don't think there's going to be events. You and I have had the opportunity to speak around the world. Dave, the same thing, even though that he lives there in Dubai, where there's a world of its own. I mean, there's so many nationalities there living there in Dubai. But anyway, there's not going to be any events going on. How are you tackling that aspect of now going into the virtual world? And what is the advice that you can give for speakers which do not really know how to get into the virtual speaking arena?
It's a great question, Ernesto, and it's a really great example of where certainly solopreneurs and small business leaders, speakers have fallen in the cracks because they had all their eggs in one basket. That is a major challenge. And so fortunately, I did not. So, I do work one-on-one. I work with CEOs, with athletes, with entertainers, with high-level entrepreneurs, with all those kinds of people privately. So I have my one-on-one clients. Then I have my speaking, which is another thing, and I have my corporate training. I'm still doing corporate training, and I'm still speaking. But now I'm speaking like this. I'm doing my keynotes via this virtual stage. And that can be done. What most speakers have got a real challenge with is we are used to having the audience feedback. And so one of the things I'm saying to the people, because we train speakers as well, like you, Dave, and one of the things I'm saying is you have got to learn how to work without that feedback. So you're probably used to watching somebody like Stephen Colbert with his show, and Trevor Noah with his show, and all these great shows, but they're all working without an audience. They're all working without an audience, and we've got to train ourselves. This is the next level of training for us. We were used to reading the audience. Now you've got to look at how do I pace myself with an audience that's not actually there for me to see. And there's a couple of ways for doing that. And one of the ways that I like to do it is to stop and have them. So all my keynotes were always this, by the way. I don't do keynotes. I do what's called keynote conversations. And the reason for that is because I want everything to be a workshop. I want people to walk away with having gotten something. So if you're going to deliver online in this way, you need to put a pause and go, okay, let's stop there. We're 10 minutes in. I want you to turn to the person next to you on those boxes you can see. I want you to go into the chat room. I want you to go into the boxes, and I want you to talk to them about what you got and then come back with a question. And then we're going to pick 3 of the questions and we're going to go forward. So you've got to make it interactive, because remember, people's attention span is that of a goldfish. So you've got to bring them in. You've got to engage them. And you do that, number one, how do you do it? Same way you do it in speaking. Vulnerability. You got to start with vulnerability. And most speakers fail miserably at that, because vulnerability is a word that's getting thrown around like authenticity. Who cares? You don't know what it means anyway. All right? Oh, I'm being authentic. No, you're not. You're just wearing another mask. I'm being vulnerable. No, you're not. You're saying the same story you've always told. That's not vulnerable. So here's the rule for speaking, and I think you'll agree with this, Dave. Here's the rule for speaking. Very simple. If you don't feel it, they don't hear it. They'll hear your words, but they won't hear it. They won't hear the message. So you've got to feel it. So you've got to be deeply vulnerable. You've got to swallow a couple of golf balls and reveal. Immediately you do that, you create an emotional connection that will take place on Zoom. I work for about 10 hours a day on Zoom. I have no problem with it. And that's because I'm willing to show up.
It's amazing what you said about vulnerability, because on that very subject, I was in a conversation the other day. We were talking about diversity and inclusion, and that's a subject I haven't gone through in public before. And I found those huge wellings and golf balls in my throat, and I found myself tearing up like I never do. I'm always in control when I'm speaking. This one was different. And I found it intriguing because it's a whole new aspect to being a speaker. I've watched you talk about making change and the Black Lives Matter and all the world's challenges right now. And I love the way that you put across what you think the solution has to be. What do we need to do to make this world better for everybody?
Thank you for asking that, because I think this is a time where we must face this. My fear is that we'll sweep it under the rug and we won't do anything. So here's the thing. I spoke at the UN several years ago with a friend of mine, Tony McAleer, who used to be, wait for this, he used to run the white Aryan race out of Canada. He was taken to the Supreme Court twice. He's a very, very bright guy. He's a very good friend of mine. Now, if you're thinking, why am I friends with a neo-Nazi? Well, I'm a Jew. or I was born Jewish, right? And when we were invited to speak at the UN, they said, why would you help this guy who was trying, wanting to eradicate you from the world? And the answer was, because I didn't see a neo-Nazi. And they go, what did you see? I saw a young man who was incredibly intelligent, who needed to be seen, who needed a voice. And people are not what they appear to be. Every human being is just trying to feel better. We're all needing significance. We're needing validation. That's what I gave him. That was how I got him out of that movement. He was already physically out of the movement, but mentally was not. That's how I got him out. And we talked about it. And they asked me, how do we bring people together? That question has never been more important than it is today. The answer is this. I said it was love. I said it was communication. I still believe it's those things. But I honestly believe with every fiber of my being, how we bring people together is curiosity. Instead of going, you're a lunatic, how can you think that? Say, that's fascinating. Tell me about why you believe that. Become curious. Curiosity is the cure for the world. It's a way for us to expand. It's a way for us to grow. It's a way for us to get past our own ego mind. Because here's the thing, and I'm going to be a little bit political right now, and it's this. Here's the thing. We, and when I say we, I'm talking about white guys, okay? We don't understand racism. Why would we? A fish cannot explain water. We don't understand it because we live in a white system. The system is favored in our side. So of course we don't understand it. Therefore, the only people who can change it are the white people. We are responsible. I take that on as my responsibility to change racism. People are saying, well, Black Lives Matter, don't all lives matter. Okay, here's where I live. I live in this house where I am right now. I'm in this house. My house is on fire. I go outside and I try to call the fire brigade, and they say, oh, all houses matter. Yeah, that's true. But right now, mine matters because it's on fire. Could you come? Well, we're going to go water the one down the street that's not on fire. This is how we have to understand this. We separate ourselves from things and we've got to take them on. Human beings are classically very poor at understanding other people's situations until we experience it. We've heard the Republican senator who comes out and says, it's an abomination, homosexuality. And then they find out their son's gay and well, I've changed my thinking. Of course you have, because you had a personal experience. As somebody who was born Jewish, I went through prejudice and I was experienced that. But that's different than racism. Racism is judging people by the way they look. And it's insane. It's as insane as judging somebody because of the shape of their nose or the size of their genitals or any of those ridiculous things. So if we're going to lead, we have to start stripping that away. I can love you if you're a Muslim, if you're a Jew, if you're a Hindu. It doesn't matter to me. You're a Christian. It's irrelevant. What's relevant is I need to have curiosity about your experience. And how do I do that? I connect to what matters to you. You see, if you want to change the world, you have to find your own single dragon fire, is what I call it. It's a single monolithic meaning that you bring to the world. And therefore you want to find that in other people, because that's what bonds us. Meaning is what bonds us. Let's find common meaning. That's got nothing to do with color. That's got nothing to do with race. It's got nothing to do with religion. It's got everything to do with humanity, with our hearts and with our souls coming together to lift this world up and make it a better place. We are all responsible for that.
Thanks for watching the show. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you watch all the videos over here. There's two choices for you. Or, of course, I'm Dave Crane coming from Dubai.
And this is Ernesto Verdugo coming from Houston.
And I think we should send a message. Hold on.
What is this?
Subscribe. Make sure you do. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on all the brand new shows, all the tips, tricks, tools, and techniques, and you'll get none of them. And what's even worse is we'll have to get proper jobs. So make sure you subscribe. I would love to see you on future shows of the Toilet Paper Diaries. You can put it down now, Ernesto. Put it down. Put it down. And smile. Say goodbye.